Hello my friends, thanks for joining me. Well, today we are going to do the final flip through of this handmade journal. There's a lot to see here, so I am going to take my time to go through it. A while back, months ago actually, you guys watched me make the cover of this. This is a true junk journal, which means I used scraps and things that would have been ending up in my recycling bin, old books that maybe were either being sold by the library because they give them about a week's time and then they burn them. Perhaps things that were picked up from a thrift store or a flea market. So things that were on their way to being discarded. So the actual book cover, it's hard, and I made that out of an Amazon box that I basically decoupage covered and used an old book. And this book I had, and this was from a calendar, sorry. This is a piece from a calendar. I used book pages here for the background. This was a pair of pants. This material was from a pair of pants that had a hole in it that actually belonged to my son. I did one signature in here so you can see that I did it right here, and I used my wax thread for that. And you can see the picture is like of a book, and that's from a calendar, a Mary Engelbreit calendar. And then on the back is also another scrap from the pants that had a hole in them. And it was either throw them away or use them. And I thought, well, why not use them? And then these are part of this is from an old calendar, and some of this is from book pages. And then this is a piece of paper that I dyed recently, actually. So that's the outside cover. So let's take a look at the inside. So I started the inside when I made the video, when I created this. I kind of started with a certain feel, but then when I continued working in it, I kind of ended up with a little bit of a different feel. All right, I had to adjust my camera. So as I was saying, when I did the cover, I started off with a certain feeling, and then when I started and I sewed the journals and I did that on live, I kind of just was feeling something else. But the person I'm gifting this to, it's okay. This will be her first junk journal, and she's young, so she will appreciate like the pictures of the dogs and all that kind of stuff. So let's get started. I'm just going to talk to you about each page, but if I don't have anything to say about a page, I won't talk about it. I don't want to take up your time in that way. But if I want to talk to you about certain things, then I will. So I've got some coffee dyed paper in here, and I have some vintage music papers, and you'll see some of those throughout. This was a card recently given to me in a swap and glue, and I want to say they were given to me by Susan, but I'm not 100% sure, but it was a very recent swap and glue. And if you're the person who sent it to me, please feel free to comment in the comments section and let me know that it was from you. And then I just put some cotton lace here on the side. On this page, I lined the music paper with fabric, and this fabric I got from my friend Carol at Carol's Recrafted Boutique. And then I also have this paper clip here with this beautiful tassel on it, and I've attached a little card. And this card I actually purchased from the Etsy shop World of Muchness, and I love it. Over here we have, this is a book page, so let me take this out. This is a book page, and then I created a pocket with a paycheck stub from 1956, and then as you can see I used some material and then just embellished it with a flower cutout and just added some coffee dyed scraps, and one of which is from 1988, so that is vintage, believe it or not. I hate to admit that, but it is. And we have a fabric, what do we call that little thing? Anyway, y'all know what it's called. Over here is the other side of the book page, and then I just did a little corner tuck, and a while back, and I showed this to you guys, I sat, and instead of putting all my scraps away, I just sat down for 2 days in a row and created tags and things like that. And so I thought it looked great in here, and that was made from scraps, all except for this Eiffel Tower. That part was sent to me in a Happy Mail, as was the flower, but everything else was scraps. Here you can see this paper is Amazon packaging, and I went ahead and I cut out the edges with my, I have a punch and it makes the edges real pretty. I'll try to zoom in on that so you can see it, but hopefully you can see that. And that's just on Amazon packaging. And here we have some lace, and this is a stamp used from an old envelope. And this lace was scrap. I was down to the very bottom. And this is an old bank statement from probably the 1980s. And then I used some paper, and then I had some scrap fabric. Over here we have a book page. I also made a belly band out of another book page, and then had some scrap fabrics that I created this. And then this was actually a scrap too, so I popped that in there. This is the other side of that book page, and using scraps I created this pocket, and then I put this on here, which was again created from scraps. And this is some ribbon, and I was down to maybe just maybe a foot of it, maybe a little bit more, maybe 2 feet of this I was down to, and then added a scrap of the cotton lace and then a scrap of this. And I put an old vintage recipe card that I had coffee dyed in here to be journaled on. Over here, more Amazon packaging and some scrap stuff, and then another vintage recipe card. Over here we have an old envelope that I used, and I've got a small recipe card and then a card. This card is from the same woman who did a swap and glue with me that she sent me the first one. So that's where that came from. And this envelope, we've got a 2-pocket situation going on here. You can tuck behind the envelope or inside of the envelope. Over here we've got some vintage music paper. Now, true confession, this is not a scrap. I got this from my friend Gwen of Gwen Offit Designs, and I will link her channel in. Actually, she's already linked in there with a coupon code if you want to use that, and you'll get a certain, I think 15% off if you shop at her store. So this is not a scrap. However, this is, and these were, and this was some scrap lace. So I've got these tucked in these little pockets. And I adhered a vintage recipe card here as a pocket, and then this actually was given to me in a swap and glue. Somebody had put something in it for me, and I thought, oh, it's so beautiful, I have to keep it and use it. So there was a little tear here, so I just put this cotton fabric over it so that could be saved and used. And then over here we have a vintage bank statement. I have this old, this was guitar strings came in this, and I snagged that from my husband and I coffee dyed it, and it's a perfect pocket, and it would have ended up in the trash. And then here's some scrap that I used just for journaling. And here's one of the snippets I made when I did kind of that mass make. So all that is like scrap goodies. Over here is the other side of the bank statement, but also here's a like a cable statement from 1990. Added a little scrap ribbon and one of these flowers. I make these flowers when I'm running low on a certain paper, but I don't, I don't want to throw all of it in the recycling bin, so I use as much as I can, and I'll punch these out of if there's a little bit of space that I can do that. Another one of the beautiful cards that was given to me. This white is also Amazon packaging. Sometimes they send brown, sometimes they send white. So this white is from them, and I stamped the edges. I think it looks lovely. This is a book page. I also stamped the edges of this. This is vintage wrapping paper. I adore it. I can't even tell you how much I adore it. And I just slid a card in here, and that can be journaled on. And this is more of the Amazon paper, and you can see this is used stamps that came in a letter to me, so I used that for, I forget what we're calling these now, anyway, tabs. That's what it is. So I've made some tabs in here, as you can see, and I've used some scrap fabric, but also some stamps. This image was given to me in a swap and glue, and I loved it, and I knew I wanted to put it in something, so here it is. And then wait till you hear this, guys. You hear how satisfying that is? This is a piece of kind of like tissue paper, but much hardier than tissue paper. And my daughter bought something the other day, and she took it out of the bag, and this was in there, and I snagged it and I threw it in the coffee and some other dye I had going, and boom, there we go. This is from an old, obviously black and white coloring book, and I picked this up at the thrift store. I have put a fabric tab on it, and on this side you can see that I put napkin, and I have, this is actually a paper clip, so I just attached it here because I thought it went well with it. More Amazon paper. Over here, Anna Stratus, such a wonderful creator, she sent me an envelope, and this is how she decorated her envelope, and I thought, well, I have to reuse that. So here it is in this journal as a pocket, and I've attached it to this wonderful pattern paper that I received either in Happy Mail or Swap and Glue mail, and I love it, and I knew I would use it in a journal, and so here it is. And it's just, I love it. So here is some paper that I created, and it had a tear in it. So I mended it with tissue paper and glue. So now it can be journaled on. And a fabric tab here. Here's some more of that crunchy, satisfying paper. I just love it so much. Now here's some pianola paper. As you can see, I've put some gold here, and then this is an actual vintage receipt, and I just adhered that to it. I didn't want to make it a pocket. It wouldn't have stood up to the in and out of tags or whatnot, so, but I thought it looked beautiful on the pianola paper, so that was a lot of fun. Really loved using that in here, and it's great that this tab was on it. More Amazon paper. Here I have images from a book page, and I picked this particular book up at the library. They were going to get rid of it. They try to sell what they can before they incinerate them, and look at the image, I was so happy to pick it up. This right here is a pocket that I created out of, I believe, encyclopedia, and then this was from a sewing book. And then this was from the mass makes of my scraps. I just got all my scraps together and did mass makes, and that's what that was from. Oops, might need to glue that little bird's tail and foot down again. Here's some gold rickrack, and that was like a scrap piece. I was down to, the very end of it. So you'll see some of it here and there throughout. This is the other side of the book page. This is an old card. I received this. I remember specifically I received this from Pam Van E. So I just, zhuzhed it up with some goodies, and this is also from the mass make of scraps that I had, and I thought that just looked nice in there. This is another pianola paper, and I folded it into a pocket and glued it to my friend Carol at Carol's Crafted Boutique. This is a piece of her jelly plate, and so I created a pocket using that and the pianola paper, and put some of my dyed paper in there. So true confession, this isn't a scrap, but you got to give people something to journal on. So this is all old scrap stuff. This was some dyed paper I created that didn't come out right, so I had to tear it, and I wasn't going to use it at all, but I thought, well, I put it in the scrap pile because why waste it? It looks so grungy and perfect, right? So here are some snippets, and this snippet was gifted to me really recently, and I can't remember who gifted it. I'm sorry. I apologize for that, you guys. Sometimes I'm so good about remembering, but I've been blessed by all of you with so much Happy Mail and Swap and Glue lately, and I haven't been able to keep track of who gave me what, so I apologize for that, but just know that I love it, and I love it enough to put it in my journals, so know that your gift to me is very much appreciated. Here's the other side of the pianola paper, and so you can see it there, and yet it's backed onto this jelly print, and so it's nice and sturdy, and it won't be too fragile, and it can be written on. This was one of my mass makes from scraps, and all of this is a book page, and then this also is all scraps that I used, and then this from a tea, like where you dip it, so that was from a tea, and this is an actual stamp that was on mail that came to me from Australia. How exciting is that? Have a little fabric tab here. Here's another piece of this delightful paper. I just am in love with it. So I put that under here. And then I made a belly band out of old encyclopedia paper and a stamp from New Zealand. Look at that, isn't that fun? And some fabric scrap. This book came from this bird came from a swap and glue. So I just fussy cut it out and put it on the Amazon paper that you can see that I stamped. So I just love that. And this is the other side of the pianola paper, so this can be written on. Lots of journaling space here. So I adhered this book page to the pianola paper just to give it some strength. I didn't do anything to cover this up. It's gorgeous. Look at it. It's a swan. It's fantastic. So on this page, we've got vintage recipe card to be written on, and then vintage pattern paper. So that's a whole lot of fun. And I used more of this fantastic book page for the pocket here, and then I made a little snippet with an old button here. And actually that's from Versace. Well, how fun is that? I didn't even notice that till just now. How swanky. Then over here we have a handmade paper clip, not by me, but somebody that I did a paper clip exchange with, so that's fun. A book page pocket, and then a snippet that I made, and I want to share this with you guys. Look at this gorgeousness that I made. So this isn't junk, but you know, I had to put it in the journal because look at it, it's great. So nice little journaling spot there. Now here we have more Amazon packaging. What I've done is I created a pocket with it, put a little snippet on it, and then put two journaling things on it, and I adhered this Amazon paper to this coloring book paper just to make a nice pocket. More Amazon packaging here that I stamped the edges to make it fancy. This is the other side of the vintage wrapping paper. How much do you love it? I love it. I put one of my snippets on here and then some scraps that I had. This is the other piece of the 1956 paycheck. How fun is that, guys? And then this was a scrap from, this did come in either Happy Meal or Swap and Glue for me, and I saved it for a journal. This is a book page that I added a fabric tab to. And another true confession, this right here is not junk. I attached this, my friend Pam at Pamela's Creations made this for me. Thank you, Pam. And I attached this to this particular journal because the girl I'm giving it to is a dancer, and I just thought that she would appreciate that very much. So there's that. Then we have an old bank statement here. It is definitely vintage. Well, hold on, let me back up. Let me go back over here. I made a pocket on the other side of this book page and put some more of that crinkly paper in it. As you can see, I lined it with ribbon and one of my little snippet clusters. Over here is a bank statement, ribbon, snippet cluster, and some more paper. And this is a pocket too. And then I lined this pocket with some washi tape and this nice big piece of fabric. It's just beautiful. I love it. Then here's the other side of it. So it was on music paper. Okay, friends, my battery went out, so I had to change it, but I think this is where we were. This is, I was saying music paper. This was a scrap of ribbon, and then it matches this piece of fabric perfectly, so I thought that turned out great. Amazon paper that I cut out. This is a book page that I attached to a bank statement, added some scrap fabric and one of my little snippets. I put in here this beautiful doll tag that I made, which was made on a paint chip, which was scrap. My friend Kathy of Kathy's Favorite Things had sent this doll image to me, and then this is a beautiful flower made by Mimi with Love. And then I had some of this, and I had the ribbon. So I thought this came together. The only part of this that's truly scrap is the pink paint swatch. And then I had some scrap fabric I put on the edge of the bank statement there. All right, so this, when I did my live and I was showing folks how to sew in a signature, because I sewed this in live, just to work with some people that hadn't done it before. Well, this was the second one I made, just to show everybody a second time. So I went ahead and I glued it to the Amazon paper, and then I covered it with some fabric given to me by my friend Carol at Carol's Recrafted Boutique, and then I put a little fabric tab on it. But this is just like basically another journaling space, all with Amazon wrapping. And when we get to the end, we flip it. This has some more fabric. And then here's a book page, and I put on here a piece of scrap, and it's kind of like a pretend snake skin. So I thought it looked kind of interesting. Here, this pocket is made from a book page, and I just put in, this was a piece of scrap from some coffee dyed work that I did. And then this is a While You Were Out. So I just stuffed those in there. And then the other music paper, and you can see I used this fabric and then this beautiful trim. And this is the last page, and then this is the back cover. And that's it. We have, I think I already showed you the pocket that we have here, and what I might put in here is a writing board. I might tuck that in here so that when somebody's going to journal inside of this, if there's something kind of lumpy underneath of it, they can put their writing board under it and then journal. Like tags you can take out and the paper you can take out. But if there's pages and there's something kind of bumpy underneath, it can be a little bit difficult. So I'll probably slide a writing board in that back pocket. It's the perfect size for one, I think. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed my flip through. I enjoyed making this true junk journal. There's maybe 1% of items in it that aren't, you know, what I would consider to be true junk. So I feel like this is a success. This is a wonderful success in recycling, and I am really pleased with it. Thanks for watching. See you soon.